everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Luisa. I hope everybody's doing well, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I have a rose bead addiction. I'll admit it, okay? I have an addiction and it's with the rose beads and I can't seem to let them go. I've made a lot of necklaces using rose beads in the last few weeks. If you follow me on Facebook, you will have seen some of my designs. And I'm not ashamed of it, okay? I love using rose beads, and today I would like to show you how to make this lovely necklace. Before we move on to the tutorial, I'd like to talk to you about a couple of things. If you are a YouTube creator yourself, you will know how difficult it is to make tutorials. It takes a lot of hours, a lot of editing, a lot of planning. So before we move on, if you could just please hit the like button and subscribe button, I would be most grateful. All right, guys, let's move on to the tutorial. I don't want to keep you waiting. Okay, here's the beautiful necklace. Look at this beauty. It is absolutely gorgeous. It has pearls, smaller ones here, as you can see. Okay, these are like half domed. And then I've added some rondelles, and here's a filigree component that we're going to be using. And basically, I just kind of wire wrapped all these beads. That's how I did it. Now these here are wire wrapped, and that's probably the most difficult part of this project, but everything else is pretty simple, guys. Okay, I think you're going to really enjoy this tutorial. Before we go on, let me show you a different color. So here's the same necklace in different colors, and I love this version. I love this color. It's like a peacock bluish color. It has a lot of different colors in it. So yeah, this is a very pretty design, guys. I think you're going to really enjoy it. And let me go ahead and go over the materials. The first thing you're going to need is this filigree focal. And here's a box of filigree components. They sell these right on Beebeecraft. And I'm going to leave a link down below for all the products. As you can see, they come in different colors. I chose silver for that version that I showed you. But for this one, we're going to choose this pretty bronzy color. Okay? But you have a lot of choices in a lot of different shapes too. That's what's so nice about these. Okay, so that's the first item. Next item is the rose bead. And I purchased this large bag on, I believe it was Amazon. And they come in different colors. So we're going to go ahead and use this beautiful coffee color. Okay, so that goes in the center. And of course, you're going to need some Kesha pearls. These are from Beebeecraft. And it's a whole strand, but you only need 5, okay? So you're going to use 4 in the necklace and 1 in the drop. You're going to need some small freshwater pearls, and these are size 6 to 7 millimeters. So they vary in size because it's kind of a freeform shape. They're sort of like nuggets, I guess. And you're going to be needing a total of 9 of these beads. Now the color is purple, but when I saw the picture on Amazon, it looked very much like lilac to me, so that's why I bought them. They match perfectly with these Kesha pearls, so you're going to need some of those for the beaded components. Okay, so in addition to the 6 millimeter pearls, you're going to need some smaller rondelles. Okay, now these are, I think they're like 3 by 6, something like that, or 3 by 5, okay? And I chose these because they seem to blend really well with this rose, this color. And they also have a little bit of lilac mixed in. I don't know if you guys can see that. But you can choose whatever bead coordinates, okay? So I tried to make it coordinate with the rose. You don't have to. You can choose a different color. Just like in the other version, I chose, actually I didn't even use pearls in this segment here. I used a fire polished bead, as you can see. Okay, I did use pearls on either side of that bead. But just whatever looks attractive and whatever coordinates, okay. I decided these would look really good with this bead, so that's what I'm using. So you're going to be needing a total of about 11 of these beads, okay. And you're going to need some small bead caps, and these are like an antique gold color. I got this huge bag on Amazon, and they range in size. You're going to need small bead caps, about 4 millimeters in diameter. We'll need about 10 because we're going to be using these for the beaded components. All right, so I have a strand of really pretty faceted beads, and they're in a kind of a purplish color or a dusty rose. It's hard to tell. It's definitely opaque. And I only used 1 little tiny bead for this dangle right here, right at the very end, okay? because I couldn't find anything else that would coordinate well with the lilac beads. So I decided to use one of these. So whatever you can find that's tiny. These are 2x4 rondelles. They're pretty small. And I just used the one right here at the bottom. You're going to be needing some wire. And as you can see, I have all kinds of brands. I'm not picky, guys, okay? I do try to use anti-tarnish whenever possible, but I didn't have anti-tarnish in all the sizes. But you're going to be needing some 22 gauge, some 24 gauge, and some 26 gauge in a kind of a gold tone, as you can see, okay? It all depends on which filigree you choose, all right? So this is kind of a bronzy color, and I decided that the gold would look better with it. So that's what I'm going to be using. I'm going to be needing some jump rings. As you can see, I have 3 different sizes. I have 4mm, 5mm, and 6mm. So you'll need some jump rings, okay, in whatever color you choose. And you're going to be needing some chain as well, okay? I didn't use very large chain, but it's not tiny chain either. It's, you know, just a little bit, it's kind of in the middle somewhere. It's a medium-sized link. I would say probably somewhere in the vicinity of maybe 3x2 millimeter links, something like that. Okay, so you're going to need some chain. You'll need a clasp as well. You're going to also need some glue, some E6000. And every time I do a video, I always tell myself I need to replace this tube because it's so dried up. It's not dried up, it's just messed up, kind of squished up, and it's hard to squeeze the glue out. But you'll need some glue, okay? We're going to be doing some wire wrapping, and I like to use these 2 pliers for that. This is a long nose plier, and the nose is really skinny. I like to use this when I'm wrapping very small gauge wire, okay? These are by Xuron, and these are actually crimping pliers, but I like to use the tip of them to grab the loops when I'm wrapping, when I'm doing my wraps, because of the finish on these pliers. It just grips really, really well, okay? You're going to need some nylon coated pliers as well. Some flush cutters. These are by Lindstrom. These are excellent. Some round nose pliers. I like to use these because they have a tiny nose and they make small loops. And these are actually a multi-purpose plier, but the only thing I use them for is to do small loops. I don't use the cutters or anything else. But you can use regular round nose if you don't have this type of plier. And that's pretty much it, guys. I know it's a lot of material. Now that we have everything, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to attach these 4 little pearls, okay? We're going to do the rose after that because it's just a lot easier to do wire wrapping without the rose in the way. So we're going to do that first. Here's my component. Here are my 4 little pearls. And you're going to be using some 24 gauge wire, okay? And you're going to cut yourself about 6 inches per pearl, all right? So because we're going to do each one individually. And I don't like to use anything thinner than 24 gauge because I just find that, you know, the 24 gauge is more sturdy. Anything thinner than that, and I don't feel like these pearls are going to be securely attached. Okay, now this is important. You need to look at the design of your component. So as you can see, I've attached the necklace to these 2 loops, this one and this one. Okay, so the pearl is going to sit in between these 2 big loops. So this is the most difficult part of the project, okay? So here's how we're going to start this. We're going to take the little end of the 6-inch piece and we're going to thread it through that little loop just like this, okay? Once you've got it through there, you're going to bend it, okay? Just like this. And you're going to thread it through this side of that loop. Can you guys see that? Use your pliers. Pull it. Try not to get any kinks in your wire. Use your nylon coated pliers to straighten out the wire a little bit as you work with it. And then move that coil down. Okay, so it's nice and tight, just like this. Thread the end back through to the front. Can you guys see that? Thread it to the front and carefully pull it through. Okay, and then you're going to take the long end and thread it back through to the side there, pull it through. So now we have 2 coils. Just like this, okay. push them down, thread it back through, check the back to make sure that the coils are laying side by side and not on top of each other. Okay, that's what you want. So here's what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to squish down those coils. We're going to thread the long end back through again. Just like this, okay? And then bring it back to the front. There's the back of it, so it's pretty tight at this point. There's the front of it. Okay, so now we're going to get rid of this little bit here, and you will need your skinny nose pliers for that, because you're going to carefully thread it back to the front of the component, just like this. Okay, and you're going to snip off the excess, and you're going to use your pliers now to squish down that little sharp end. And I'm not too concerned because the pearl is going to sit on top of that. Okay, so it won't be too noticeable. Move this wire to this side, get it out of the way. There's the front, there's the back. You might want to use your pliers to squish that down a little bit in the back, flatten it out a little bit. Okay, it's pretty tight, but that's okay because then that pearl won't move around very much. Okay. And like I said, you can manipulate these coils with your pliers if you need to. Okay. All right, so now we have that end attached. Now we're going to get our pearl and thread it onto the wire. Now these usually, what I find is that they have a side that's flat and a side that's more domed. So definitely you want the flat side up against the component. Okay. And I'm going to push this pearl that way. So you may have to bend it a little bit, bend the wire a little bit to push it so that it's sitting on top of those coils. Can you guys see that? Okay. Take the other end, thread it through this loop now, okay? And don't worry, everything will tighten up in a second once we get it through there. Pull it tight. Okay, then once you have that through, you're going to take the long end and thread it to the side of that loop on this side of it. Okay, just like this. And back through the loop that you started from. Okay, can you guys see that? It's a little tricky, I know. It's not easy. This is the most difficult part of the project. Okay, so we're getting there. Okay, there's one coil. So again, thread it through this large loop. Use your pliers to pull it through. Manipulate those coils, move them down because you want them to sit side by side. And you're going to do a couple more coils. All right, so I got that one through, and I'm going to bring those coils down now. Bring them down. There it is in the back. I'm going to go back to the front of the component. Okay. And it's pretty good. It's pretty secure on there, so I'm not going to worry too much more about it. So I think at this point I'm going to cut off the excess and tuck that little end in towards the pearl. Okay, let me just see if I can show you. Tuck it in and then move that pearl right on top of that little bit. Okay, so there's nothing sticking out. And you might want to use your pliers gently just to position that pearl on that component the best way you can. Okay, this is the back, this is the front. So that pearl is not going to go anywhere, okay? It's pretty good on there. All right, so now we're going to attach one on this end. Let me just get my pen to point. We're going to attach one here, and another one the same way that we did this one, okay? On top of these two little loops, right in the middle there. So this one I'm going to show you because it's a little bit different. I mean, it's the same concept, but the loops are a little bit different. It's actually easier, okay? So let me go ahead and get my wire. Here's a nice long piece, okay? Get your filigree component, quarter turn. All right, so now we're going to attach it here and we're going to thread the short end right through the middle there. Bend it. So you have this. Thread it through that little loop there. Okay. Okay, just like that. Bring it back through this big loop. Carefully. And back down through the little loop on the side. So now we have two, okay? And back up through. Let's check the back, okay? And there's the front. Back down through. So now we have our 3 coils there. And back to the front. That's where you want to end, okay? Just like this. All right, there's the front and there's the back. And we're going to get rid of this end now. All right, so grab it with your pliers and thread it through to the front of the component. Pull it through. Just like this. And we're going to snip off the excess and squash down the little bit, the little end, the best way you can. All right. Okay, so now we have that wire attached and we're going to thread on a pearl. Okay. And again, you want to kind of squish it or move it to the side a little bit so that it sits sort of on top of those coils. And then you're going to thread this end through the middle there. All right, so there it is. And now I'm going to thread this back through to the front, just like this. pull it. Okay. And now we're going to thread it back through that big loop. All right, and we're just going to continue doing our little loops. So you want to take the end and thread it through, pull it through, just like we did before, making sure those coils are lined up properly. Okay. So now I have two, and I'm going to go ahead and do a third one in the back. Just like that. Okay. Snip off the excess wire. And then use your pliers to tuck that little end in. Just like this, tuck it in. Okay. It's not perfect, and it's not easy because these pearls are freeform shape, okay? So they're not all going to look exactly the same, but at least you know that they're securely put on there, okay? And even if you see a little bit of wire, that's okay. You can just tuck it in a little bit, move it around. Okay, that one's on there pretty good. Now, guys, if you want to use glue, by all means use glue, but there's not a whole lot of surface there to glue it on, and so you know they're not going to be as secure. All right, now you could, if you wanted to, put a little dab of glue somewhere in there, but I really don't think it's necessary. Okay, and it just looks a lot nicer, I think, if you just have the coils in the back and no glue. Okay, so this is what we have so far. So we're going to attach another one to this loop just like we did with this one, and then the fourth one will be on the bottom here between these two little tiny loops right on top of that post. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. As you can see, I have all pearls attached. Let me show you the back. Okay, there are my coils. It was not easy, guys. One of the reasons it's not easy is because those little holes are actually rounded. They're not square, they're not flat. So it's very hard to get the coils in a uniform manner. But do the best you can. Use your tools. You know, use the nylon pliers to keep the wire straight, to make sure that there are no kinks while you're working with it. That's all I can say. And like I said, if you have to glue them on, go ahead and glue them on. But the one thing we are going to glue on today is the rose that goes in the middle. Okay. Now, because the surface is big, okay, and there are quite a few areas where the glue can attach, I feel pretty confident that if I glue this on, oh, the other reason is too that it's flat, okay, whereas the pearls are not flat. This surface is flat. So if I put glue on this and put it in the middle here, I'm pretty confident that it'll stay in place. So that's what we're going to do next. All right, so let's get a piece of paper to protect our beading board. Get your E6000. Squeeze out a little bit, okay? And you're going to place it directly onto that bead. And you're going to pretty much coat the whole surface, but not a big thick layer. Just make sure that whole surface is coated, just like this, okay? Not too much glue. And then once you have that glue on there, go ahead and place it onto the filigree right in the dead center, okay? Make sure that it's centered. Just put it on there, okay? and then let it dry. All right, so you're going to let it dry for quite a bit, because just like any other adhesive, it may feel dry to the touch, but it's not fully dry for a few hours, okay? And I usually try to do this the night before, okay, just to give it lots of time to dry and cure. But for now, since I'm doing this tutorial, I'm going to have to just go ahead and lay it down for about an hour, and then I'll come back and finish the necklace. But I'm not going to lay it down like this. I'm going to lay it down like this, okay, because I don't want any of that glue to seep out and then for it to stick to the surface that it's sitting on. So we're going to let that dry, and then we'll come back. Okay, and while that's drying, we're going to go ahead and start building our components. And the first thing we're going to build are the components that go underneath that pendant, okay? So this one right here and these other two. So let's go ahead and do the Kesha pearl first. 22 gauge wire, okay? I recommend 22 gauge because anything thicker than this may not go through the beads, okay? Pearl beads have a tendency to have very small holes. So although I would prefer to use 18 gauge, it's probably not going to fit through that hole, or even 20 gauge. All right, so that's why I'm recommending 22 gauge. And you're going to cut yourself a piece that's about 2 inches approximately, something like that, maybe 2.5. Give yourself plenty of wire to work with, okay? Get your round nose pliers. Place it onto the wire like this and give it a little kink. You want your pliers at the top end of that bend, and then you're going to turn your pliers around, okay? Just like this. Bend the wire around the top jaw, flip your pliers around again, and continue bending towards the back. Just like that, okay? All right, now I always take it off because I find that if I grab that loop with this crimping tool, and by the way, I don't use the grooves. I use the very tip that's flat. I find that these really grab well, okay, because you want a secure hole in that loop, and you don't want the loop to get bent out of shape. All right, so you grab it like this and get your other set of pliers. I like to use the needle nose, like I mentioned before, because it just makes it easier to do the wraps. And you're going to do a couple of wraps, 2 to 3, okay? I don't like to do more than 3 because I don't like a lot of wraps on my jewelry. 2, 2.5, 3, something like that, okay? And then you can get your flush cutters while it's still on there and snip off the excess, okay? And then, of course, you want to tuck in whatever piece of wire is sticking out. You want to make sure that it's not sticking out, okay? So tuck it in. Once you do that on one of the beads, okay? Just like this. Get your round nose pliers again. Grab it at the top. And have a look to see which way the little loop is facing, because you want this one to be the same. Bend it, flip your pliers around, wrap the wire around the top nose, flip them around again, take it to the back, but don't close the loop because we're going to need that loop open, okay, for the next component. So we're going to put that down for the time being and get another piece of wire. And once again, we're going to do a little loop. And do your couple of wraps. And if you're new to beading, this is probably challenging. I know it was challenging for me when I first started, but it does get easier, I promise you, okay? It gets easier. I snip off the excess. And then make sure that piece of wire is tucked in. Let me bring it up close so you guys can see. Okay. Okay, so now that we have this loop, we're going to go ahead and thread on some beads. A small rondelle. A bead cap. One of these pebble pearl beads. Another bead cap. And another rondelle. And this is what you should have. Okay. All right, so now we're going to do another loop. When you're doing wraps, take your time, okay, because this is not something you should rush, okay? Rushing doesn't do any good at all. Okay, so now we have this component, and I am going to line up my loops because I forgot to look at that. Okay, and now you're going to hook it onto this component right here. So just like this, you want it inside that loop. Okay, and this one is a little bit trickier because we have more beads in the way, but that's okay, you can still do it. That's why I like to use these pliers with thin noses, because I can get right in there. And again, do a couple of wraps. Snip off the excess. And tuck in whatever piece of wire is sticking out. And now we have this, okay? All right, so now we're going to add one more component to the bottom there. Now I did my own head pin because the beads are really tiny, and I don't have head pins that are that thin. So I'm going to use very skinny wire to make that little rosette head pin, okay? I'm using 26 gauge wire, and you're going to need a piece that's about 2 to 3 inches. Okay, get your round nose pliers. Now, if you don't want to do a rosette, of course, just use a regular head pin. Just make sure your head pin fits through the beads, okay? Now, the way I start this, I do a little kink at the very tip of my round nose, and then I flip it around. And at this point, you're going to just go ahead and do your coils right on the tip, okay? You don't need too many. You need about 2 to 3, something like that. I usually do approximately three coils. Can you guys see that? Let me just take it out and show you. And you want them together. You want to squish them together. Just like that, okay? Put your pliers back in. Kink it so that the wire is facing that way, away from your pliers. Take it off your pliers. So this is what you should have, okay? And now you're going to take the tip, this tip, and thread it through those coils, just like this. Grab the end, pull it, get your pliers, and you will need some nylon coated pliers for this, okay? Because now you're going to push that little rosette all the way down to the very end of that wire. And by doing this, it actually tightens up the little rosette. Let me just show you. This is what you should have. Okay, so now we're going to thread our beads. And the first bead we're going to thread is this very tiny 2x3 or 2x4 rondelle right on the end. Okay, and then your larger bead, just like this. And you can actually take your pliers and smush down that little rosette a little bit more, gently. Okay. Get your round nose pliers, grab it at the top, kink it, switch the pliers around, wrap it, turn your pliers around, wrap it to the back. Don't close the loop because now we're going to attach it to the bottom of this one. Okay, so here we go. Thread it on just like this. Okay. All right, so now we're going to grab it the same way that we've grabbed the loops before with these pliers. You want to get just the right angle to get in there. Okay, it's very tight, so it's going to be a little bit challenging. But like I said before, just take your time and do your couple of wraps, 2 to 3, just like this. Snip off the excess. Okay, and then smoosh down the little bit of wire that's sticking out. Okay, so this piece is done. So pretty. I love this. And this is going to hang down that filigree focal. Okay. So now we're going to work on the pieces that are coming out from the top of the component that form the necklace itself. Okay, so the next piece is another one of these Kesha pearl components, and you have to excuse the glue on my fingers. Oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing. Either I have messed up fingernails or fingernail polish or glue. The life of a jewelry maker. All right, so we're going to do this one first. Okay, so you're going to need another piece of wire. Give yourself about 3 inches if you're a beginner, just because that way you won't be struggling so much with doing the wraps and everything. Okay, and now we're going to grab that little loop, just like we did before, and form our couple of wraps. Snip off the excess. Okay. Grab your pearl. Push it all the way down. And we are going to do the loop at the other end and close that loop. Take your time when you're doing these loops, okay? Don't rush them. I know I keep saying that. And then snip off the excess. Sometimes I take it off the plier and do it. And sometimes I leave it on. Just depends on how much of an angle I have and how much access I have to that wire. Okay. All right, so now we're going to do the next component. I've already done one loop and then I've threaded on the beads. I just don't want this video to be too long, but as you can see, I have the larger freshwater pearl in the middle with bead caps on either end, and then the smaller rondelles on the ends. Okay. And you're going to form your loop at this end now. And before you close it, you're going to thread it onto this. Okay, so here we go. Okay, you want it inside that loop just like this. And grab it with your pliers. Okay, and close it up by doing your wraps. Snip off the excess. And squish down the little sharp bit. Okay. All right, so now we're going to do another one of these Kesha pearls. And again, I've done the loop already, and now I'm going to finish off the other end. Okay, but I'm not going to close that loop because we do have to attach another component to it. And now we're going to attach it to the components you built. So go ahead and thread it on and push it into that inside that loop like this, okay? And close it up. Okay, so this is what we have so far. Now we're going to build one more of these, okay? So again, get your wire, 22 gauge, form your loops, one loop. This last one's going to be a little bit different because I want to attach the component directly onto the chain without using a jump ring. So I'm going to go ahead before closing this first loop and thread it onto the Kesha pearl, okay? Just like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and close it by doing the wraps. Snip off the excess, tuck it in, okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and thread on the last set of beads. All right, so this is what we have so far. All right, so now I'm going to do a loop, but I'm not going to close it like I said before because I want to attach it directly onto the chain. Okay, now this one here is closed. I am going to attach this to the filigree component using a jump ring, okay? And the reason is that the jump ring gives it more motion, it's more fluid when you do that. But with the chain, I don't want to have too many points of failure. So I think the chain, because the chain itself is flexible and, it moves a lot with the links, I think it's safe to go ahead and attach it directly onto the loop. Let me just show you, okay, what I'm talking about. So see how this one moves a lot, okay? If I were to attach this loop directly onto the filigree, it wouldn't be so flowy, okay? That would be a good word to use. So that's why I like to use the jump ring. Now the jump ring is a point of failure because it's split, okay? So you want to try to minimize as many points of failure as you can, but sometimes it's just not possible, okay? But down here at this end, because the chain itself is very fluid, very flowy, you really don't need a jump ring, okay? You can just attach it directly onto the component. I hope that makes sense, okay? So that's what we're going to do, all right? I'm going to go ahead and build another one just like this, okay? So this is going to go to on the bottom of that pendant. This is going to be one of the sides, and I'm going to build another one just like this. So you may want to rewind your tape and go ahead and start from the Kesha pearl and do a Kesha pearl, a beaded component, a Kesha pearl, and another beaded component. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I've built the last component, and I'm going to go ahead and attach it to this one here, the Kesha pearl. So now I have both of them built, and I have the drop that's going to go on the bottom of my filigree pendant. And here's the filigree pendant. Okay, it's pretty dry, so I think it's pretty safe to work with it. Jump rings to attach it. I have two 4mm jump rings and two 5mm jump rings. I'm going to grab a 4mm jump ring and open it up. All right, so first we're going to attach the strands. Okay, so take a look at your component and find that large loop, which is this one right here. Okay, attach one strand, and then close up that jump ring really well. Okay, make sure you check it from the side, from the top. feel it, make sure it's completely closed and that strand is attached. All right, so now we're going to attach the other one. This part is the easy part, guys, okay? The difficult part is over. Open up the jump ring. And then close it up. Check it, make sure it's completely closed. Okay, so that strand is attached. So now we're going to attach the drop, and that's going to be a little bit more challenging. Okay, so get your 5mm jump ring and open it up. You're going to grab the filigree component, and right where you see the two wraps, right underneath the pearl, you're going to stick that jump ring into that little loop there. Can you guys see that? Let me just show you real quick. Just like this, okay? That's how you want to attach it. Now it is a little challenging because there's not a lot of room there, but now you're going to get your drop and go ahead and loop it onto one end of the jump ring like this, okay? And then go ahead and close your jump ring. Just like this. Okay, so this is what you have. Get your other jump ring, open it up, thread it onto the side of that pearl, just like this, okay? All right, and now get your drop and slip it over that other end of the jump ring. I'll show you in just a second when I get this closed up what I'm talking about, okay? So if you'll notice, the only way to connect it really is by using two jump rings, okay? Because of the way this little post isn't, the little post is right in the middle there. So there's no other way to do it. Otherwise it would be off center, okay? But I like to use two because it keeps it keeps the drop in place. It doesn't wiggle around or swing around as much. So it's a good idea to do two jump rings anyway, okay? So that's the most difficult part about connecting all of this, okay? So now that we've done the drop and we've got the strands connected, the only thing we have to connect now is the chain. Now the length of chain is going to be totally up to you, okay? My necklace is about 16 inches long and the components are about 4 inches. So I'm going to cut another 4 inches of chain to make it 8 inches on each side. All right, so now that you have your chain, you're going to take one end and thread it onto the loop of this component so that it's inside that loop, just like this, okay? And just like before, grab your pliers, your two pliers, one to hold the loop and another one to wrap, and do your 2 to 3 wraps just like you've done before with all the other components. Okay, snip off the excess, tuck it in, and you have one end connected. Okay, now we're going to do the other end, and I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and I finished the second necklace. It's actually the third one because the second one was the peacock colored one. And I did add the lobster claw clasp with some jump rings. I used a 4mm at the end, and then I used a 6mm at the end of this piece of chain. Okay, now this one does have an extender on it. Of course, you know, you can always do that. That's always a good idea if you're planning on giving it to somebody and you're not sure what length necklace they like to wear. And yeah, these are really pretty, guys. These are so beautiful. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and put one of them on. Maybe I'll put the peacock colored one and I'll come back and say goodbye. Well, I can't decide which one I like better. I don't know if I like this one or if I like the lilac colored one. I'm going to leave a link down below to beebeecrafts.com so you can go get the lilac one if you want to. But, you know, make it in a different color. Can you imagine this in an off-white color for a bride? I think it'd be absolutely gorgeous. All right, guys, go out and make your own necklaces. Send me a picture. I'd love to see your finished necklace. Okay, I'm going to be doing a video in the near future featuring some of my viewers' necklaces. So please send me your photos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.